Good morning, everyone. Hope you are well and ready to dig in. So grab your Bible. Let's go back to the 69th Psalm, where we'll be picking up in the seventh verse. In the seventh verse of the 69th Psalm. And again, this psalm is a psalm of affliction. It is messianic in that it points towards the suffering of Christ, but also a situation, an unknown situation in David's life. And he is going to, he has given us guidance in how to pray in these situations when we are being persecuted, when we're having trials that are particularly due to our faith. We have a lot of trials, a lot of testing, a lot of persecution, whatever words you choose to use. We have a lot of those, and a lot of those situations, and they come from a lot of different angles. Many times, very bluntly, they are of our own making. They are because of our own bad decision process. Sometimes it's because of sin. But in this case, it is clear that David is writing about, again, a situation that is provoked because of trying to be obedient to the Lord. And so we saw in the first few verses, first step is crying out to the Lord. Again, we see that step. That kind of seems to be the first step in all these situations. And then the second section we looked at yesterday was to go ahead and, even when it is because of our own righteousness, our relationship with God, we still need it's always a good time to check up. Check our own life. And so we saw that in verses 5 and 6. Now in verse 7, we're going to pick up here. And the third thing that David teaches us is to understand, and again, this is a specific situation that we are going through this test, going through this time simply because of our faith. And that's very difficult for some people to handle. We really struggle sometimes with that type of persecution or suffering that comes about as a result of our faith. We have bought into, and an underlying reason for that is that we have bought into Satan's lie, the world's lie, that if we will, and the church helps spread this, if you just go to church, if you just give your life to the Lord, then everything will be okay. Everything will be much better. Well, the reality is, again, this is a messianic psalm. And we know that Christ was crucified. If they didn't accept Christ, why would they accept us as his followers? And so David teaches us now to understand that we are suffering, again, in that specific situation, we are suffering because of our faith. And David is going to lay that out here in these verses. Because for thy sake I have borne reproach, shame hath covered my face. Now, careful, David is not blaming God when he says, because for thy sake. He is simply saying, because I have tried to fear and live for the Lord. He understands that the root of his problem was his trust in God, that people were attacking him because of his devotion to the Lord. And so he's not blaming God or accusing God here, but he's simply recognizing that what's going on in this case, in this situation, is because of his relationship with the Lord. He says, I am become a stranger unto my brethren, an alien unto my mother's children. And again, you can see the messianic bent of this psalm. Certainly, that was the testimony of Christ as he was on earth and doing his ministry. He became a stranger to his brethren, both his literally his half brothers, but Israel as a whole. This is certainly, we see the parallel into Christ's life. But what David is saying is, in this situation, his own family has turned against him. Perhaps this was during the time with Absalom. It doesn't say that. Hard to know. But that his own family had forsaken him. One of the hardest things that I have heard people talk about as they live for the Lord is that very issue. Is that they try to live for the Lord, and they have actual family members, and some of you may have experienced this. You have family members who reject you and persecute you because of your walk with the Lord. And so it's very difficult, and David acknowledges that. Verse 9, he says, "For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me." And so again, he's saying for the zeal for the house, not just his desire, his faith, his confidence in God, but his commitment, his zeal is the word he uses here, for the house of the Lord. Certainly, again, some of you can identify with that experience. I have heard of, unfortunately, it seems to be kind of a one-sided situation, not always, but many times a wife, her husband will be very harsh on her because she gets up and goes to church and tries to be in church, and he will chastise her for that. And so David can identify with that because he has had zeal for the house of the Lord. There are people who have rejected him, not only because of his confidence in the Lord and his commitment to the house of the Lord, but then he goes on in verse 10. He says, "When I wept and chastened my soul with fasting, that was to my reproach. I made sackcloth also my garment, and I became a proverb to them." And so not only do they mock David and ridicule David for his commitment to the Lord and his confidence, or his confidence in the Lord and his commitment to God's house, but also for his communication with God. What he's talking about here when he's talking about his sackcloth, and that was his time of fasting, his time of praying, practicing spiritual discipline. His friends, his family ridiculed him for that. We see that in other biblical characters. Perhaps there are those listening this morning who have experienced that as well. And finally, then David says, "They that sit in the gate speak against me, and I was the song of the drunkards." And so his final statement here is even his community are ridiculing and coming against him. "I was the song of the drunkards," he says, and so he was actually ridiculed. He was made fun of when he says, "They that sit in the gate." At that time, in that culture, the city leaders, basically the city council, I guess would be our term, sat at the gate, and so the city leader spoke against him, and I was the song of the drunkards. And so what he's saying is, from the elite to the bottom of society, I have been ridiculed for my confidence, my faith in serving the Lord. And so some of you may be listening to this description that is given here and thinking, okay, so yeah, I know all about that. So what's the lesson? I know all about being ridiculed for my faith. I know about my family attacking me. I know about my neighbors coming against me. I know all about it, and I'm right there. But so what do we learn from that? Well, I think what the simple lesson to say is that that David continued to love God. Here he is writing a song. He's praising the Lord. And we're going to see it in verse 13 tomorrow when we get into it, when he says, but as for me. He's listed these things. My family's against me. My friends are against me. The people in town are against me. But as for me, my prayer is unto thee. And so the lesson is, I think, that no matter what adversity we face, no matter what others may say or think about our walk with the Lord, is that we without fear or reservation, we commit ourselves to being good followers, disciples, committed servants of Jesus Christ. And so I think that's the simple lesson. Now, secondary lesson of that is understanding and knowing that if you make this kind of commitment that we're going to look at tomorrow in verse 13, but as for me, my prayer is to thee, you need to expect friends, family, others to come against you. And then the third lesson I would say that we can draw from this is that we need to make sure, very sure, and David did that in our passage yesterday, examining his own life, that when the world comes against us, that they have no ammunition. Someone has said, live your life so that when someone, and I'm going to not getting this exactly right, but live your life in such a way that when somebody ridicules you, chastises your name, your reputation, people won't believe it. And that's basically what David is, one of the final lessons here is people are going to talk. If you live for God, if you try to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, if you follow him as closely as he desires, you're going to have family members, you're going to have friends, you're going to have coworkers who give you grief, even so far as persecute you for your faith. Let's be determined to examine our own life as David did in this passage and make sure that there is nothing there that gives them any ammunition or room to point towards our life with derision. All right, have a great day. I hope that challenges you to live for him and to stay close to the Lord in our daily walk. All right, thank you. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.